early morning from Orlando. We're at the Rosen Center Hotel at the Hemp Industrial Conference. And we have a returning guest. Not too often we get returning guests, but we have a returning guest. Steve Edmonds. Steve, welcome.
Good to see you. Thank you, Charles.
Welcome to Cannabis News Florida's broadcast this morning. And Steve has an interesting project. He was starting it out last year, and it was very interesting as a beginning project. And now it's really gotten some legs to it and really moving along. So tell us a little bit about what you do with Native Hemp Solutions.
Well, Native Hemp Solutions is sort of my umbrella company.
Sure.
And Native Hemp Solutions is the primary corporate partner in both Seed to Stable and Hemp for Water.
Okay.
So it's like a consulting overall hemp kind of stop to help people figure out where they want to go in the industry. Seed to Stable is a brand new endeavor that we started last year, as you were mentioning,
right.
that is dedicated to providing horse bedding or animal bedding to the equine markets in Florida. We have one of the largest equine markets in the world.
Sure.
And we have the ability to grow as much hemp as we can possibly get into the industry and through the system. I brought a decorticator down to the show with me this year. That's one of the first ones in the state that I'm aware of that's in operation. We have a bigger one. We just have to get to the point where we can feed it.
Right.
So this is hopefully something that'll allow us to get the ball rolling and get some of the smaller farmers that are interested in growing at least a place for a fiber crop.
Right.
So that's all going great. And today, from 8 to 10, I'll be doing my panel, which is really going to focus on Hemp for Water. And Hemp for Water is my nonprofit that is dedicated to cleaning up the rivers and lakes in the state of Florida by growing industrial hemp on floating biomats.
Yeah, and that you started that, what, 2 years ago? 2 years ago, I remember that.
Right.
When you were starting the project and trying to figure out where you're going to put it and that type of stuff. So tell us where these are in the state right now.
Right, so our primary location is in Highlands County in South Florida State College at the Avon Park campus. Dr. Kate Calvin is our lead there. She's actually going to be speaking on my panel today and giving a data update on our 2-year. We're past our 2-year mark, and all pilots have to give their data that they've gotten so far. So we're doing that publicly today, which I'm pretty excited about. She's also going to have a student presenting with her, so we can show the meeting of the industry along with education and introducing to the next generation, which I'm pretty excited about too. So we've got a lot going on with Hemp for Water, trying to move from, hey, we know we can do this, to how do we do this at scale?
Right.
You know, and how do we get it out there? So you asked where we've got mats around.
Right.
So we've got mats in Yalaha, excuse me. I always mispronounce that. We have mats in Lokahatchee, we have mats in Avon Park, and we have a mat in Ruskin.
So tell us the concept of why this is beneficial for the plant and for the water system.
Well, for the plant, I'm not positive it's really beneficial for the plant, but it is beneficial for the water system. Now, one of the reasons why we decided to use hemp is because it is extremely hardy if it can acclimate. And the other reason why we decided to use hemp is because we want to pull those plants out of the cycle. We don't want to introduce anything new to the natural cycle, and we don't want to leave anything in the natural cycle. So one of the problems with like water hyacinth or cattails or any of these other aquatic plants that could help, they die and then they decay and then they just add back to the nitrogen and phosphorus. And the nitrogen and phosphorus is what is fueling the algae blooms.
I got you.
So
and we know about that because we have that in Florida all the time. Right?
Well, yeah, it's one of our worst. It's one of our worst situations, and it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad throughout really the entire country and the entire world. This cyanobacteria that's created from blue-green algae is really the danger there. It's highly toxic. It can kill people and shut down tourist ecotourism in a day. And basically, it is able to feed and propagate most in warm waters that are high in nitrogen and high in phosphorus with a little bit of salinity. So when it discharges out of our freshwater areas and goes into our brackish and our saltwater areas, that's where we really get a problem. So we want to try and fix it before it gets there.
Right, because we've had that happen multiple times in
Oh
Florida.
yeah, every year.
Every year it happens.
Yep.
And so this is able to kind of slow that process down, or not eliminate it totally, but make it a little bit more palatable in the future if you can get enough of these grows going, I guess.
So what do you tell people on the medical side of things when they say, how is it that cannabis can cure everything?
Right.
What's the answer to that?
The answer is it doesn't cure everything, it helps, and in some situations it's better than others.
So my answer is typically, cannabis doesn't cure or kill anything. What it does is it helps your hypothalamus regulate your body and help your body produce the fighting materials it needs to kill whatever it's fighting. So it's creating a homeostasis or a balance.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing in the environment, same thing. We're not wanting to get rid of the nitrogen and phosphorus because we need those nutrients. But what we don't need is the excess of them. And what we can do by this is we have a non-mechanical, non-chemical way that we can manage the amount of phosphorus and nitrogen, and if we can keep it at normal levels, those algae super blooms will never occur.
Right. So tell us, I mean, in the hemp industry, and you've been involved since the very beginning.
Yes, sir.
The hemp industry starting in Florida, and maybe going a little bit away from the seed to stable and hemp water. But tell us about how you see the industry business-wise, because that's always a challenge in a state. And I've talked to a few people here. In fact, one of the people who came by was Brian from Colorado, and he was telling me about the hemp growing in Colorado. Tell us how you see this. What's your procrastination for the future? I mean, where are we going to be in 5 and 10 years in the hemp industry, do you believe?
Well, I'll give you where I hope. I'll give you where I hope. So let's see. I think that where we're at in the industry right now is the chicken and the egg scenario, right? Basically, we have all this great ideas and things that everybody wants to do and products they want to make, but we've got no infrastructure to make any of those products. We don't have the raw manufacturing, and we don't have the secondary and tertiary ones either. So basically we have the opportunity to answer that question, I believe, by bringing them both.
Right.
So what we need to do is find an industry that can kind of push everything along the line. So I think that it's going to be something that's that involves seed, because that's the total growth of the plant. So if we did something like biodiesel, and put together a plant that was small enough to be managed within a 100 to 150 mile radius, meaning fed by the local farmers.
By local farmers,
right? And then and all the transportation is kept within that area. But large enough to kind of make a decent impact.
Right.
I believe that you can answer that question by, all right, so let's put the investment in to build this $10 million facility. It takes us 9 months to a year to build. That's when we set up all the contracts to grow. So we're answering both at the same time. Now the farmers are like, oh, the fuel plant is going to buy all my stuff? Great.
Now I'll grow.
Now I'll grow. You know,
that's an issue. That's
the fuel plant,
produce and everything. Well, why grow it if nobody's going to buy it?
You have to have a home.
Right.
So in addition to that, now the investors, that's our big hang up, you know, so they're not willing to put in a structure or infrastructure or plant if they don't have a way to feed it.
Right.
So so both of these interests are waiting for the other one to move.
That's right. Who goes first?
Who goes first?
Well, it's like the medical cannabis. Can you imagine that all these licenses are issued and people pay millions of dollars for it, and you produce this product, nobody buys it?
Right.
So
and
if you don't have a buyer, and I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, you know, if I grow watermelons, I know people are going to buy watermelons.
Right.
If I switch to hemp, I don't know.
Exactly. It's speculative.
So why would I switch to hemp unless you have a product or somebody you know is going to buy that at the end of its cycle.
Exactly.
Right.
So if you have, especially an energy or a key commodity infrastructure that everybody knows is being built,
Right.
then all of the ancillaries will answer that call and come in.
Makes sense.
And when you're looking at something like biodiesel, you've got so many things that are, let's think about all the products we can make there,
Right.
right? So we grow it to seed.
Right.
Awesome. So now we've got a great crop. We know we have seeds, we know we have flour, we know we have stock.
Huh.
So that's 3 raw products right there that go into several different manufacturing
Absolutely,
streams.
right.
So let's stick with the seed for a second. We got to take and we have to crush that seed to get the vegetable
Right.
oil that we're going to turn into diesel.
Right.
Well, when we crush that seed, now we have seed cake.
Okay.
That's a commodity.
Right.
That's a value. Hemp is the best in omega-3, 6s, and 9s.
Mm-hmm.
We can add that back to our food supply, both to animal feed and to human feed, through this process.
And there's some people here using hemp as
Absolutely.
a product as pulling away from CBD and just using hemp.
Oh, absolutely,
Right.
it's a phenomenal
Right.
superfood. So from there we can take and we put it through the process and we make biodiesel. Well, one of the neat things about making biodiesel out of vegetable oil is you get glycerin as a byproduct. So you're creating many industrial and industrial byproducts along the way with just one single investment. And when that works, it just builds the whole community out. And that's really what I'm trying to push as far as, you've heard me say forever, infrastructure.
Right.
And we don't have it. I think this is the way that we can do it.
Do you see this anywhere else in the country? Where, I mean, there was somebody had shown a video of a processing plant in Montana, huge process. I would assume they're not spending millions of dollars in growing this, and they don't have an outlet for it.
Well, a lot of these plants have been either shelved from the previous green initiatives when the gas was expensive,
Right.
10 years ago. I was involved in that, and that's kind of really what pushed me into all of this. So from there, they've either retooled a factory. I don't know of any factory that was actually specifically built
Right, okay.
for. And I think that that's part of the mistake, is because you spend a lot of money trying to adjust something that wasn't really made to do the job that you're trying to do.
It's almost at a point in time of that question always comes up: do I renovate, tear it down, or build again?
Exactly.
And it's the same situation. Do I retool, or do I just tear it down and build the solution specifically for this?
And that's
product?
one of our biggest problems in the industry, is that we're looking at most of the things that we're looking at that we have knowledge of, and it's almost 90 years old.
Right.
It is 90 years old. And then we're trying to reinvent the wheel from 90 years ago. I think we need to start inventing new wheels.
Well, you need new wheels, and again, you mentioned it earlier. The key to it is you got to have an end game on this thing, because everything is an end game. No matter what you do, you can produce a product. You can have the best product in the world, but if nobody's out there buying it, it doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't make any difference.
Makes
at
any
all.
difference.
And my goal as somebody that's been in activism since the early 90s is to figure out how to make as many people as successful at any endeavor that they're doing in the hemp field as quickly as possible, because we're never going to make that transition from the fringe to normalcy and to commonplace until the commonplace says, hey, I want to try that.
Right.
And that's what we've got to build to. So in 5 years, I hope we're there. In 10 years, if we're not there, I'll be dead.
Yeah. So your investors today have to have capital willing to have patient money and patience.
I think it is patience and drive to do something
But
good.
there has to be a vision down the road for these people to say, I don't mind, I'll go ahead and I'll put in whatever money it is, but it has to be more than a 20-year payback.
Oh, well,
And
I mean, that's the
point.
thing. That's one of the things that I'm having
It's
a hard
tough
time
thing.
wrestling
Right.
with, especially right now with gas being $5.25.
Right.
I kind of expected to come to this and have people lining up to talk to me about my fuel plan, because it's a $10 million investment. It's a facility that'll make 2.5 to 3 million gallons a year. The ROI on that when fuel was $3.25 was 36 months. We're talking about 18 months now.
12 to 18 months, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, to get to the revenue to pay back that 10 million chunk, and now everybody's making money and they're doing it green.
Right.
And we're and here's the big thing with oil and with diesel, biodiesel, is now we can really be truly energy independent,
Sure.
and
Right.
that I think is the goal.
That, you know, if you can make that happen and not extract the resources from the earth,
Right.
and be able to grow it and use it and turn it into something that we can use and
Renewable
regenerate,
and
renewable,
sustainable, yeah.
that you can constantly do it. But again, you know, it's forward thinking. You know, it's very hard, especially in today's time, sometimes for people to get their heads around it, to understand it. But in order for the hemp industry to prosper again, not
Correct.
prosper. This is nothing new. Just
No. It was our most prosperous
that's right.
crop until
That's right.
1937.
To prosper again, people have to have a vision, and people have to change their thinking about use.
Yes.
And that's the toughest thing for people to do when you've had all these other solutions,
Right.
out there. You know, but let's face it. You know, how many forests are there to cut down trees to make paper?
Exactly.
As opposed to hemp, where how long does it take to turn?
Well, in comparison to pine, pine takes anywhere between 10 to 20 years to,
right.
to mature.
Right.
We say 14
Right.
just to get the comparison. We can grow the same amount of biomass that it takes an acre of pine to mature in 14 years. I think it's I think it's 4 years is the same amount of biomass.
Right.
I mean, it's so much quicker, and that's only if you're doing the turn once a year.
Right.
In Florida, we can turn 2, 3, 4 times a year if we manage our light correctly.
That's right,
Our
that's
light
right.
is going to be a determining factor.
Sure.
And I do believe we are going to have to add supplemental lighting to the fields to get to scale.
Right.
I think that's going to be,
Yeah.
or we're going to have to find the right cultivar that isn't photosensitive and
Right.
is time sensitive,
Right.
which exists too.
Right.
Now the question is, can we grow that at scale?
And-
So we've got a couple
And
things we've
again,
got to get to.
and we'll wrap this up as you say. If you're interested, this is the place to be. And obviously today's the last day of it. But again, if you really want the education, if you're looking for a long-term investment to be able to change and to be green, to be honest with you, and to be green as an investment, give Steve a call.
Please do. Yeah.
Steve, how do they reach you?
My cell that's connected to all my businesses is 407-701-9045. Steve at hempforwater.org is probably the best and quickest way.
And easiest.
Email and
Easiest.
easiest on email. And then other than that, you can find me on Facebook and the web at all of the different names. Let's see, nativehempsolutions.net, hempforwater.org, seedtostable.com. So unfortunately,
Lots of them.
yeah.
If you can't, I'll put it this way: if you can't find them, give me a call. You know where to find me, and I'll get you the information to Steve. But if you're interested, whether you're looking for an investment or you're just interested in the industry, or you may have somebody who's saying, "Listen, I want to get into the business, but I'm not sure how I do that," Steve would be a great guy to talk to.
We'd love to help out. We need to get as many people in and growing this thing to everybody's prosperity as fast as possible.
Right.
Come join us.
Okay.
Thank
Steve,
you.
thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.